What's up, legends? Today we're doing the long-awaited review of Clear Surfboard's Performance Series. These are locally shaped boards I've been riding and testing for the past year. You might be wondering, who are Clear Surfboards? They're a family-run business located on Sydney's northern beaches, founded in 2003 by head shaper Brad Robinson. And fun fact, they were my first board sponsor at 15 years old. Now, if you breathe air and love surfing, please subscribe to help me hit 100,000 subs before the end of the year. I love every single one of you. Here's some important info you need to know before we get into the review. So all the boards are made with a polyurethane construction, better known as PU. They all have the same standard glassing and a medium rail profile. To be consistent with the reviews, I use the same tail pads on all the boards, the Reliance tail pads by Creatures of Leisure. I also use large Felipe Toledos by FCS. And for me, I'm about 176 centimeters tall, about 68 kilos, and ride 25 to 26 liter surfboards. Starting with the C1 Clear's Performance Groveler. The C1 is Clear's take on a high-performance small wave shortboard. It features a wider outline and flatter rocker than your everyday board to help generate more speed in small waves. The C1 has a subtle directional change at the front of the fins, bringing the tail in. Clear offers the C1 with a versatile 5-fin setup. Order the C1 roughly 1 to 2 inches shorter than your height. Okay, so I ordered the C1 5'7", so about 2 inches shorter than me. It's 5'7", 19, 2 5/16, 25.68 liters. This is actually a replica. The first one I had was 25.75 liters, but these boards are exactly the same. So my first surf on this board was actually up the coast.
And I won't lie, I wasn't the biggest fan straight away, but in saying that, I always have this transition period from going between shapers. I remember pumping on my very first wave and thinking, wow, this thing feels really weird. So it definitely took me a few waves to get the hang of it.
And then I think I went for a roundhouse kind of cutty, like just a little one. And I was like, oh, okay. This board is actually pretty nice on rail. And then yeah, so it definitely took me a good 5 surfs, probably get a true feel for this board. And then that's when it started feeling better. Obviously this board has the wider outline, flatter rocker, so it is designed for smaller surf to be able to generate speed and get over those flat sections. I found this board where it really excelled was in the air. On rail, it was still decent. Like I actually did some of my best turns in waves that were head high to overhead. You can definitely surf this board when it's a bit bigger. As far as fin setups go, I actually just used a thruster the whole time. I wish I experimented with like some twin fins or even quad. I just ride thrusters and I figured the rest of the boards are thrusters, so it only made sense to test it in that. So some things I liked about the board, paddle power, I'm not gonna lie, amongst all the boards, I think you can just paddle well on all of them. I didn't have a single board where I was like, oh, this one's not very good at paddling. This board was probably the best airboard out of all three, which again made sense because of its outline and design. Now, some things I wish could be better is Clear Surfboards don't make any epoxies or EPS boards, and I feel like with a small wave performance board, having that lighter construction really gives it more spark and makes it feel like a completely different board. But like, I've surfed this thing in knee-high, tiny waves and still been able to kind of rip the thing around. So it's not the biggest deal in the world, but that would be a sick thing potentially in the future. Moving on to the C2, Clear Surfboards all-round shortboard. C2 is Clear's high-performance all-round shortboard. It will keep you covered from waist high to overhead. It features a modern shortboard outline and standard everyday rocker, allowing you to dominate in most conditions. Clear offers the C2 and a squash tail with a thruster setup. All of the C2 roughly the same length as your height. So as you can see, this is the board I've definitely ridden the most. Again, the first time I rode this, it just felt weird. Like, for some reason, riding a new board always feels really weird to me. It definitely takes me a few sessions to get the hang of it, and this was no exception either. I believe it was the second surf, literally the day after I had my first surf on it. The waves were firing, and I felt like I did some of my best surfing on this board. Something just clicked. This board just started feeling really good under my feet, and because all these boards are very similar, they've got a similar template that they just adjust based on the conditions, like small wave board for the C1, big wave board for the C3, and then this one in between. So I guess it had that similar feel to the C1 compared to a brand new shaper. So when we look at the design, like the tail is way thinner, even the rails are thinner, they feel quite sharp almost. And then it's also thinner in the nose compared to the C1. Obviously we got the thruster set up back here. So just by looking at the outline and feeling it under your arm, you can kind of tell that this board is made for some better waves. And then luckily that second surf I had was absolutely pumping, got it to myself. The board felt so good on rail and I could just hit the lip how I wanted to in the pocket. And there was definitely more drive off the bottom and then hold through the turns. Like I never felt like I was lacking speed, but this board definitely needs better waves than the C1. Not necessarily like bigger waves, but the shape of the waves need to be quite cupped out, steep and bowly. I felt as soon as this board was on flatter sections, I felt like it just wanted to tip and lean. And when the waves are firing, that's kind of exactly what you want. You want the board to be engaged on that rail. But when it came to these kind of sluggish, softer sections, sometimes I'd be doing a cutback on my forehand. And then as I would lean on the board, it would just tip and I'd fall off. And that actually happened on all three of the boards. So I kind of had to change my surfing where I would be really weighted back through those flatter sections. And you would have seen that if you saw my urban surf video. I was nursing those kind of wraps before the barrel. So yeah, this was my second edition of the C2 and pretty much flogged this board too. But fun fact, I never creased or broke any of these boards and I've had 5 of them. 2 replicas of the C1 and C2. I think rail is where it shined, but also sick in the air. And then for getting tubed as well. That is the C2. And lastly, the C3. This is Clear's performance step-up surfboard. The C3 is a step up for larger, more powerful conditions. It has a generous amount of nose rocker for steep drops and the rounded pintail enhances drive off the bottom and hold through turns. Clear recommends sizing the C3 roughly 2 to 4 inches longer than your everyday length. So as you can see, this board I've definitely surfed the least, and if you watch a bunch of my videos, you know I'm a bit of a small wave warrior. Although I did try to take this out in some bigger surf and some punchier conditions. It's weird, this board has like really thick rails, like there's so much foam up the nose in the chest area, which is great for paddling, but in the nose it's like twice as thick as the C2. And yeah, it just felt chunky. Like I think this board's 26 liters or something. Even the tail's quite thick. I had a bunch of surfs on it off camera and I was just never able to get a feel for it. Even in like decent, well overhead surf, yeah, I just didn't connect with this board. And that's why it looks so fresh, like there's minimal dings on it. I did surf when it was a bit smaller too, at one of these kind of left point breaks. And it had a few moments where it actually felt nice through turns. Like I felt like I could hold the rail longer. Yeah, the C3 wasn't for me. There's not too much else I can say. For me, I'll be keeping the C3 as a barrel board. All right, guys, so that is my review and breakdown of the Clear Performance Series. Just a quick recap. C1 is a Groveler small wave performance board, so you want to be riding this one about 1 to 2 inches shorter than you. This will excel in small waves. The C2, I'm really good at this reviewing stuff. Me. I swear if these boards fall over one more time. All right, where was I? Yeah, the C2, you get the best of both worlds. This was my favorite by far. And then you got the C3, the step up, made for bigger, more powerful waves. So if you're a surfer who charges or loves slabs and that kind of thing, I would go with the C3. Now, if you've made it this far into the video, Clear Surfboards has a special promo for my audience, which is NOS15. You can use that on their website to get 15% off any of these boards of the Clear Performance series. I believe the boards retail, if you buy them at the stock dimensions, for $680. And then if you want to make any adjustments to it, like if you want a swallowtail or something for the C1, I think it's an extra 40 bucks, which would make it $720. So you're looking at $300 cheaper than all the major brands. And if you even go in person, just mention Noz or anything to Callum or Brad, and they will take care of you. So the last thing you probably want to hear from me is, would I recommend Clear Surfboards? Do I think the boards are any good? And yes, I do. I feel like if you know what dimensions you normally ride and you don't want to spend all that money, like, give it a crack and let me know what you think. And that's about it, guys. I really hope you've enjoyed, and I've actually got some very spicy news coming soon regarding boards, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for the love and support, and I'll catch you in the next one.